So, hello and welcome back to the Caledonian Braves podcast. Today, we're going to be joined by a special guest, Ed Cowburn, the designer of our new kits, but we've just launched this week here. So, Ed, I'm sure you've got plenty to say about the new kits, but delighted to finally see them out for everyone to see.
It's been a while, yeah. It's amazing how long this process kind of takes. This one actually hasn't been as long as some of them. Obviously, the kind of higher up the pyramid you go, you end up with kind of nearly a 2-year process.
Already.
Yeah. So I think I first spoke to Chris maybe a year ago, I want to say. Or maybe a bit less than that. So yeah, no, it's not been too much of a wait, but it is always. I'm always really itching to get this stuff out. You know, when you finally get the sort of artwork approved and then samples, and you're like, right, okay, come on, let's do it. And obviously we've had to wait even longer for this one, but yeah, it's all worth it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, because I think I heard your name floating in and around the club, which does feel like quite a long time ago now. Seeing initial sort of ideas coming through and actually getting there this week was a big push. A lot of work to be done to get the launch done, but
it gets quite scary, doesn't it, near the end?
Yeah. But proud obviously to see it out now, and the reaction's been really strong online. Is that what you're expecting to see as well?
I mean, you always have those kind of moments of just not self doubt, but just going, how is that reaction, going to be? I pride myself, and with Acid FC Studio, pride ourselves on trying to do projects that are going to get reaction. I think that's my biggest, not annoyance, but I think it's an issue within a lot of sport, and obviously football particularly, where kits kind of don't get much of a response. They're just a bit meh, and that would be the worst thing, for us. I want people to kind of see things and go, "Oh wow, what's that?" Or "My God, what's that?" Or just have that kind of ability to create that bit of shock. I think when you look at the way social media and culture is generally, everything is so fast. That you need to create something that is going to stop people in their tracks, and then have a very much a reason behind why you've done it like you have, and that everything's got a story, and there's extra details as you sort of delve deeper and dig more. So I want to give that to fans, and to certainly from our perspective, people that don't know who the Braves are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you sort of finished off on that, because a lot of the things you've said there obviously align in with the Caledonian Braves and what we stand for as a football club as well. And you come into us from Acid FC, your company, where what's your technical role there? Sorry, with Acid FC?
Founder, creative director, team maker, dog's body, all the above.
Everything. So plenty of that.
Yeah.
Could you just tell us a bit as well about your background then, coming into the club? You've mentioned kit design you've done previously as well. Just a bit of details on that.
Yeah, so Acid FC was kind of, as with a lot of things these days, it started up as a side hustle, I guess. I was my background is graphic design. I founded and ran a cycle wear brand called Miltag for a number of years, and in that time I kind of always, it was football that really was real passion and remains so, and I always kind of wanted to do something in football, so started an Instagram account just for my own benefit, just to kind of get some of the ideas out of my head, and from there I guess the real turning point was having an Instagram with a few followers, and then getting a phone call from David Bellion, who was a Man United, Sunderland player back in early noughties, I think I'm gonna say, and is now the creative director at Red Star in Paris. Very cool guy. A lot of time for David, and yeah, he called me and I was in the car, and I was like, "What's this French phone number? I better pull over and see who it is." And it turned out to be him, and we got on really well. We talked about football culture and design and fandom, and eventually he sort of offered me the chance to kind of have a look at their kit. So we did that, but that was back in 2019, and it kind of gave me the impetus to go, yeah, what I want to achieve in football. There's definitely other people out there that feel the same way as I do, which is, let's try and do different things and look at kits and football culture in a different way. So yeah, that gave me the impetus to really push on, and I spend a lot of my time trying to find like-minded people, I guess, and I suppose that's where Chris came along. But since from the Red Star stuff to before Chris got in touch, I'd done the kits for Leeds United, so last season. So that process was like 2 years before that. So worked with Adidas, done some stuff with Puma, and other like-minded football clubs.
I mean, that's really interesting to hear. So would it sort of be fair to say your whole background coming into the football side of things sort of started as a bit of a sort of a passion project more than anything, and then has kicked on to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure, and it still remains so. And I think that's for anyone in the creative industries or in sport, it's like that's why we do it, right? It's like it's the passion, it's what gets us up in the morning, because every day isn't amazing, but we're really lucky to be, I think, in this part of the game. I guess I'll throw it back to you, is your dreams as a kid, were you dreaming of being a footballer and didn't make it, and then you found a passion sort of actually, for me as an artist, and it's good. Well, can I still be involved in football in my own special way? And certainly seeing the kits I designed on actual players is still a joy.
I mean, and that feeling as well, I could only imagine how that would see on Leeds United as well, a team that you support as well, I'd be right in saying.
Yeah. I think probably there definitely is something to say about designing the kits for the team you support that puts everything into context. And I still have to pinch myself that actually happened, but it means that when it comes down to like our launch yesterday, I can take a moment and step back from it and know that there's pressure, and then there's pressure designing your own team's kits or your own the team that you support. So yeah, that was definitely interesting from a kind of emotional level, the extra level of responsibility you place on yourself. But I come to every project now understanding that every fan of every club feels the same way, and therefore every project that I undertake, it has that same level of understanding and responsibility and honor and pride and all that stuff. We just want to make products that fans fall in love with and understand that as fans too, it is paramount to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously the stories that go in behind to every project you'll be doing. Maybe a kit to be worn by a Premier League club again someday, or not too confident of that this moment in time.
Are we talking about the Braves
Leeds,
here?
Leeds.
Yeah, let's not talk.
We won't touch on that too much. Well, that kind of brings us quite.
I always like to think that you kind of you need to sort of push on to sort of other things. I'd obviously love the opportunity to do Leeds again, but I'm really happy to be kind of involved with what's happening at the Braves, and I think when you talk about, I mean, it's cheesy, isn't it? But when you talk about journeys, I feel like this is very much the beginning, and to kind of be a part of that and have a seat on the Braves train is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing I'll touch on if anyone asks me as well. The stage of the journey we're on, and that brings us obviously quite nicely into your venture with the Braves. How did you first come across to find out about the Braves? I don't know, Ed, if you're a big follower of the Lowland League beforehand, or
Massive follower,
big follower of it. Yeah. So, but the Caledonian Braves obviously aren't your quintessential fifth tier Scottish football club. So how did you originally come to find out about the club and hear from Chris, I would imagine.
I mean, I wouldn't count myself as like a full-on football hipster. It's very difficult, at my age with, family and everything to be kind of really understanding, what every facet of the game globally looks like. I do my best, in terms of the design side, to make sure that, we're coming up with, fresh things. But yeah, I don't think I'd heard anything at the time, but it's funny how these things happen, and I think it's happened a few times in my career where someone approaches you and then you see a lot more of it, and it all seems to kind of happen at the same time. And I don't know if it's that same sort of thing as, when you buy a new car and then suddenly you see loads of those cars everywhere, and it's just, the psychology of these things. But Chris actually called me. It's a bit like the David Bellion thing. Another one, calling from Paris. Who's calling me? I better take it. Could be interesting. And Chris had seen what I'd been doing, and just explained what the Braves are about. And said, do you want to have a look at the kits? Do you want to be involved? I'd love to hear your thoughts. He's a very open guy, Chris, and wants people that, I mean, I'd say almost impossibly share his passion for what he's trying to achieve. He is a beast of a man in terms of the goal he's set himself. And yes, he sold it to me, and it was a case of what is the brief, what opportunities are there to do different things. One of the toughest things I think when you work in football sport generally is there's so much heritage and so much history with most clubs. So I'm looking at old stories and trying to go, right, how can we have a nod to something that might have happened in decades earlier, to sort of re-educate fans or the next generation. Whereas with this, the real excitement is the fact that there is no history. It's a club that's 5 years old effectively, and he just said it's a blank canvas. What would you do? And that, I mean, is kind of the ultimate opportunity to kind of make a mark and start things. And obviously I'm already thinking about where this could go in future. So yeah, and then I think Chris was on. Well, he was on a podcast, the Price of Football podcast as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm a listener to that as well. So it was like at the same time I heard him on there, and everything just made sense. And really, it also is really cool to sort of feel like you're really helping a project like this, and being appreciated, which is always nice.
Oh, well, certainly appreciated by us on our end. I feel like I've probably been a bit of a pain in your backside as well, getting all our graphics and everything lined up, but we're getting there, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, we're getting there. It's just I think people need to understand that it's a pretty small team that we've got here, that we're trying to get as much done as possible, and we all have really high standards, and certainly I think Chris really does lead that, and deserves so much credit. And there's so much more we want to do, and we're trying, and yeah, I think we're getting there.
Mm-hmm. And sort of what you've mentioned there is really being able to leave your imprint on a project as well. And is that one of the big selling points? And I did kind of want to ask you this right at the start when you were talking about Acid FC and the sort of like-minded individuals you want to find. The Caledonian Braves giving you a chance to be a club that traditionally have always gone against sort of the grain in what we've been able to do. Looking back before, even my time with the club as well, watching on from the outside, always a club looking to break some sort of traditional moulds within certainly a Scottish footballing context, maybe even wider than that as well.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I think sort of culture generally, you have this word disruption, and it's almost lost its meaning about what that actually means. And I think if you sort of look at what the Braves have done, having a ownership that is crowdfunded, and therefore means that we've got thousands of people globally that have an interest in what we're trying to do, and effectively um, paying wages, and that in itself is pretty unusual in football, and I think that's a really cool thing to be a part of, and that as kind of almost that the brief for us all, every day to go, is this disruptive? Is this connecting with people? Whether it's the ownership that are already kind of put their money where their mouth is, or new people that want to be involved in the club. The kit falls into that remit of trying to do something, as I said right at the beginning, that is going to get us noticed. Kits these days are a huge industry, and people really love them, and there's so many collectors out there. The last even since I've started Acid FC, it just seems to go up and up and up each year. There's sort of desire for people to be seeing kind of new things and trying new things, and that's our job. I think is to, but it fits in with the club's mentality. It's not just lip service.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I'd say obviously you're kind of looking at a different audience that you probably have ever seen before, in the way that we have such a large following in the US, and a big part of my job is checking my phone every day to see I've probably received 10-15 messages from owners in America asking when the kits are coming out or merch, whatever it may be. But I think the word that comes out of that is passion at the end of the day, and they've all been so excited to see that, and a different audience to cater to in many ways.
Yeah, I think honestly it's incredible, and I came up for which was the match, but Berwick Rangers.
Back away, yeah.
And it's an away game, and there was owners that were over for that game, and it's incredible. It really is, and it's definitely a really exciting project to be involved with, and I hope we get a little bit of forgiveness in terms of the merch is coming. Be rest assured. I think put my merch hat on and say there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and we're trying to get things in place. But now we've got the kits out. I think there's a bit more time for us to kind of go right. Let's follow that up. But the kits are the priority in terms of obviously that's what the players are going to wear. And you think it's a question that I'll put to you is, do the players like the kits?
I certainly hope they do. I've not had too much of a chance to speak to them yet, but I'm sure they will do. The only thing I'm possibly thinking as well is we've been wearing the Coq Sportif template for now, which is still undefeated. So I don't know if there's any superstition there.
that has definitely played on my mind this week. I hope, because I've had this experience before of footballers are pretty superstitious bunch, and they don't necessarily like change. But let's not talk about that. Let's just keep keep our fingers crossed. The start of the season, obviously they've done extremely well. A couple of draws recently, but let's keep. It's a long season. I'm pretty confident. So.
No, I'm certainly doing. I certainly think they look brilliant myself as well, and look forward to we'll have all the players out in them soon for the studio shoot, so I can come back with some feedback for you. But I'm sure the reaction will be really good, because I did actually have quite a lot of the lads asking when we put the sort of press announcement out about you as well, joining the club as creative director, just who you were, where the kits were, if I had any pictures yet, that kind of thing. Quite a few of the lads are asking. I was like, not yet, but obviously wait and see. They're definitely worth the wait. So and I could see one of them hanging up behind you as well. So I was going to ask you next, could you just talk us through some of the inspiration of the design? It's certainly an eye-catching one hanging up on the wall there.
Yeah, so I think, how I kind of work when it comes to sort of these new briefs is, like I said before, often you have a brief where it's kind of fairly specific. When I did the lead stuff, it was like, we're going to do stuff around peacocks, and then so you've got that whole idea to sort of play with. But with this, it was really open, but very mindful of the kind of the sort of two audiences. Is the kind of fans on the ground, which is obviously quite small, but then this ownership group that is global, and the fact that that I think that crowdfunding was obviously kind of off the back of this is a Scottish club, you can own a wee Scottish club, and obviously I'm not Scottish. I think it's probably worth me saying, although my sister has lived in Edinburgh, since she went to university, so I kind of feel I've got a kinship there. Um, but it was like, how do we do something that kind of feels Scottish, but is contemporary and interesting, and doesn't go just down the obvious design cues of what tartan is. And I mean, I've obviously I've been around this design for a long time. I'd be quite interested to know if the word tartan wasn't included in how it's pitched online, whether people get a sense of this being a Scottish kit. Because how the designers sort of come about was, look, tartan. But I did a lot of research about tartan generally, and it's a really interesting history, and it's got this really amazing juxtaposition by being both unbelievably traditional and part of the kind of historical top echelons of society within Scotland and around the clans, but also was then worn as a rebellious thing against the English, and was actually banned in the 1800s, I think I'm right in saying, for a number of years, because of it basically almost being like this rebellion uniform. So you've got kind of rebellion mixed with rich heritage, and lords and all that kind of stuff. And then you end up with it used in the 20th century by the punk movement, by Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren and the Sex Pistols, and almost like totally changing, what that is. So I couldn't kind of move on from what tartan was and how we could then take it and do something different with it. You're a Scottish football expert, I guess. And tartan's been used by a lot of clubs, right? I think there's been a kit. Dundee had a kit with tartan on. Obviously, the Scottish national teams had tartan on it, but in a more traditional way. And it's like, how do we? Because we're a contemporary club doing a contemporary thing. How do we do something different? So I created a tartan that is, by its nature, based on the French flag, because obviously the club comes from sort of Parisian background and Edgeworth Academy, and from there it's like, right, okay, what does that look like? How can we play with it? How can we stretch it? How can we make it feel interesting and unique and contemporary? So it was kind of broken up, twisted round, sort of using kind of kaleidoscopic sort of methods, shall we say? I don't want to give the whole magic sauce away. And then kind of once we got a pattern that was really interesting, and it really gave a sense of, I think, the art history of Glasgow as well. It sort of reminded me of sort of George Rene Mackintosh, and who I really love. And sort of stained glass windows, and then it was like, oh, it also kind of has this vibe of sticky pub carpets from gig venues from when I was a kid and stuff, and it was like, I think we're onto something here. But at the level that we were playing with in the development, the contrast was way too high. There was white and blue and red, and putting all those together, you ended up with far too much going on. It was far too loud. If you think that what we've ended up with is quite loud, some of the early sketches are a lot even louder. So then it was like, right, we need to start manipulating color and working out something that's going to have that kind of level where from a distance you go, that's really interesting, and then the closer up you get, there's more going on. So that's kind of how we got to the final pattern on the home kit. What else is there? So we then there's two other elements. Obviously, to the kit is the badge and the sponsor. So I kind of we'll always ask questions about what is possible and what is not possible as early on in a project as we can, because I'll kick myself if there isn't if we've missed an opportunity to sort of do something different. So I sort of said to Chris, what about if we play with the badge a little bit, if we kind of just strip it down to the Phoenix and have that almost as like a superhero element, because that's what it feels like to me. It's like that's your opportunity to kind of look really different here. And he was like, yeah, go for it. And so the badge obviously you're wearing, the traditional main club badge. It's just got the Phoenix on it with a little bit of red and blue, sort of as that sort of hint towards, and it's quite nice, isn't it, the way it balances now with the Le Coq Sportif logo on the other side of the chest, with the red and blue, touches. And it's just really bold, and I think obviously it's been in the graphics over the season already, so hopefully fans have sort of noticed that, and I haven't seen anything where people are upset that we've gone down this direction. Who knows what happens next season? Let's see. And then with the sponsor, I think again, we want visibility. We want to be known. We want people to sort of see it and kind of be wanting to learn more as quickly as possible. So, having Braves as the sponsor, I think really helps that. And we had long discussions about whether there's a negative impact in terms of you're giving away real estate for potential sponsors there. But we kind of, I think, agreed that this was an opportunity to be doing something that's disruptive, that is different. There's probably a handful of clubs I can think of off the top of my head that have done this in the past, and I think it works. I think the main one that everyone probably knows about is Venezia in Italy, and they're now got their kits made by Nocta, which is worth people looking up. Who's sort of a big streetwear player. So that's where I'd like us to end up with this. And the font was chosen, to give it that kind of slightly punk edge. It's a very traditional Gothic font that I think you would kind of recognise as sort of being that kind of, 17th century British kind of look, but moved around, twisted to make it more dynamic, to give it that kind of more Jamie Reed, who's the designer that sort of did all the typography for the Sex Pistols. So yeah, it's all going on there, and that's just the home kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the away kit, which we wanted to do something, basically reuse that pattern, but do something that was a bit softer, and obviously you need a contrast color so that when you do play teams in darker colors that you can wear the away kit. So that was just like flip it, and I think as a set, I'm really pleased with them. Yeah, really pleased with them.
Well, I'd have to say, Ed, as we keep talking, I hope you're not getting offended. I do keep looking over your shoulder because the kit is so just eye catching in a way, which is I'm sure what you want as well. So it's really caught my attention. So
it is about getting attention, but it's also I want something. Everything that we do that looks good on the street that people can wear, because it's not just about what the players do. These days I think kits are designed so that they can look really good with a pair of jeans, and and on the street I still get a buzz. It happened yesterday. I was in the car and saw a kid in one of my Leeds kits, and it's like it looks smart on both levels. So yeah, I'm glad you like it.
No, I certainly do. I could do one with my seven-a-side football, or even a pair of jeans, as you say, hopefully sometime soon myself too. But a big part of the kit release as well, of course, has coincided with what is, in many ways, a bit of history as well. Le Coq Sportif coming back to the UK, and, looking at sort of what would certainly be considered retro kits nowadays. There's so many iconic designs, certainly, in the UK landscape with Le Coq Sportif, and how brilliant it is for you that you were able to partner up with them for the release of this kit coming back to Scotland?
I think it's a great story, isn't it? I think everything kind of makes sense. Sometimes when you're doing projects and you sort of think, well, how are we going to explain why this has happened and what it's about? And you spend time kind of sat post rationalizing about things, and with this, it just all fits because Chris is based in Paris. The club came out of Edge Sport Academy, and so that kind of Franco-Scotland link just is there. So to have Le Coq Sportif get involved, and as you say, there's plenty of heritage to fall back on. Not that we even really need to with this project, but I look back on my football watching career, and the first World Cup I remember was Mexico '86. So you've got Maradona wearing Le Coq Sportif kit, and I certainly know, from Chris's perspective, we share a love of Maradona, even as an Englishman who obviously were knocked out and left.
He's loved up in Scotland. Don't worry.
I don't think I cried, but I'm sure any Scots out there that are listening to this would hope that I did. I think I guess that must have planted the seed of designing football kits, and I'm sure I've drawn Maradona a lot of times actually, and that Le Coq Sportif logo is quintessential on that kit. I was very lucky enough actually, and it's a good link to one of our other partners with this project is I was really lucky to visit the Classic Football Shirts warehouse a few months ago, and even luckier to kind of go through some of their archive, and they actually have one of the substitute shirts from that England Argentina game, the Hand of God game. So I was able to kind of actually see it up close. To sort of feel in my own or our own little way to be linked sort of to those kind of moments. It's a huge honour, and something that I don't dismiss lightly.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, I feel we could talk about these kits all day long. If I could put you on the spot a little bit, and could you maybe give me, if I asked you to give me 3 words to describe the new Braves kits, if I put you on the spot here, what would those 3 words be?
That's harsh.
I want to see the natural reaction to this.
I'd probably go back to my. It's really difficult not to just sound really cheesy and sound like you're reading from a press release and just sort of say, Tartan, punk, and brave. But I think that is true. That kind of, it's not lying. I was thinking, I said to my wife today, and she laughed at me and told me never to say this. Was maybe I'm trying to put the rave into the Braves.
That could be quite a slogan there,
yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm known for my cheesy dad-like puns.
Well, no, I like the sound of that. I think that covers it quite well. I should say as well, I just found out I will be graduating next month, thankfully, and my mum's trying to help me possibly sort out a kilt. Sorry, for my graduation. If I turned up in a Braves tricolour sort of mix up, do you think there's any possibility in that, Ed? Or
I would never ever say no to that. I mean, I sort of grew up in an era where I very much remember like the Prodigy, wearing kilts on stage and stuff, and I wish in many ways I could have a bit more Scottish in me so that I could carry it off. But yeah, absolutely.
I think that would give my mum a bit of a shock if I turned up like that. But so just to finish up, I did want to mention as well, though, Ed, obviously you're with the club now on a bit more of a permanent basis than just designing our kits with your role as the creative director of the club as well. Where did the idea, come that you wanted to be even more involved in the project than just designing the kits?
Again, this is quite a long process and almost a manifesto thing for myself. Is I've been worked in football for a number of years and kind of worked with lots of different clubs. I think it's a role that more clubs need to take up, to sort of see the football culture landscape, but also the kind of landscape beyond just football. To sort of how clubs can resonate with local community, your wider community, other interesting things that are going on in art and music, and try and sort of bring those all together, because football for me is really kind of at that pinnacle of what for a lot of people culture is. And you eat sort of cheesy. You sort of grew up thinking I want to be a rock star or I want to be a footballer, and I think that still resonates. And then you kind of add the fashion piece in as well. And I just think having people involved in football that have that sort of knowledge and experience and vision across those things is really important. And I think that's where you end up coming up with really interesting ways to engage people and make cool things. Obviously, what happens on the pitch does come first. I don't want to kind of elevate my role into something it's not. It really is. We're here. We're all here to try and hope that the club can succeed on the pitch and win things and move up into the league, and that's a long-term strategy. But you need to have different revenue streams and business opportunities that can come from culture as well. So this kind of blank canvas that the Braves have being able to go, well, we can create something that is more culturally aware and interesting. That is what could end up with interesting sponsors coming your way, because traditionally a club at this level would only be able to get sponsors that are your local scrap metal merchants and that kind of stuff. Whereas with this, we've got this opportunity that is, we're doing cool things, we're trying to be different, and we're talking to a global audience. And to be part of that is pretty unique. I can't think of many clubs in the world that have that opportunity. So to sort of try and do that here is a really good place.
And just to finish up then, what do you think's next to come then for Acid FC and the involvement of the Caledonian Braves?
Well, I think we need to start thinking about next year's kits.
That's an early statement there.
Well, I was going to say, that might sound as if it's early, but for some people that might also sound as if it's quite late.
I suppose, yeah.
I think for me, when you're thinking about kit, and obviously we've been working together on kind of how almost the kit has then created what the rest of the club's graphic sort of look like, is if you can do a kit that works really well, and you're looking at that, say a year in advance, or sometimes even more, is you can use that to help build what the rest of the graphic language around the club is. So I think the earlier you can kind of get stuck into this, the better. So that everything's in place. Come August. So I do definitely want to kind of take myself away a little bit and really start to sort of think about what might be possible. But I obviously can't say anything else than that. It's all currently just up here. But yeah, it's as we said, we have to just keep building kind of on the day to day, keep the engagement high. I'm on the lookout for other companies, brands that might want to collaborate with the Braves, and reaching out to them and seeing what we can do, whether that is on merch or on art projects or something completely unexpected. So expect some surprises, Callum, I guess is probably what I'd say in terms of what we can do.
That's certainly one thing I do come to expect working with the Caledonian Braves. There's a few surprises along the way. But Ed, I would like to say a huge thanks to you for coming on here and talking a bit about the vision behind the kits. It's been fantastic to hear your insights and behind these designs which came out, and the reaction so far has been brilliant. So thank you for coming on, for your time.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back as well soon with more podcasts from the Caledonian Braves. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you do like and subscribe. Ed having to run through all the formalities here. Listen on Spotify, 5 stars there. But Ed, once more, thank you for your time once again, and thank you for everyone for listening today. Goodbye.